I would say for the better part of 2 years, the large language model race was three teams. You had Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google racing for the lead and going back and forth, jab for jab, as the best AI model maker in the land. Obviously, Microsoft's in there, but they're more of a system that uses other technology. But when it came to actual AI frontier labs, it's always been a three-team race. I don't know if it's like that anymore. I think right now, OpenAI and Google are so far ahead of everyone else. And I'm left wondering, what happened to Anthropic? What happened to Claude? Is it still a top tier large language model, or has Claude completely lost its edge? And can they ever catch up with Google and OpenAI? All right, we're going to be talking about that and a lot more on Everyday AI. What's going on, y'all? My name's Jordan Wilson, and I'm the host of Everyday AI. This thing, it's yours. It's your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping us all not just learn AI, but how we can leverage it to grow our careers. Because you can try to keep up with AI news and developments and new large language model updates. You can try to keep up, but just hearing about them, reading about them doesn't do anything. You need to leverage it. And that is what our website is all about. YourEverydayAI.com. So there we recap each and every day's podcast episode. Sometimes I have guests on, sometimes it's just myself. So we bring you exclusive insights every single day. We're actually the only AI newsletter that does that, as well as we keep you up with everything else happening in the world of AI. So you can be the smartest person in your company or your department when it comes to generative AI. All right, let's actually do that and go over a quick recap of what's happening in AI news for April 15th. So Apple is responding to criticism over its AI performance, particularly in areas like notification summaries, with a timely pivot toward synthetic data and differential privacy. Apple kind of responding, according to reports, by focusing a little bit more on synthetic data, right? So the company generates, according to the report, the company is now generating synthetic data to emulate user information without using real content, enabling private testing on data of users who opt into device analytics. So this approach ensures accuracy while safeguarding privacy. So Apple obviously has had a super slow rollout. And by super slow rollout, they're years behind everyone else. And their Apple Intelligence, let's just say it has not been well received. So some new reports and information are showing Apple's kind of new or updated approach by using synthetic data, kind of tying it to those who sign up for kind of this device analytics. So by pulling devices with synthetic data comparisons, Apple is hoping to enhance its Apple Intelligence with better email summaries and other functions, signaling a broader commitment to addressing user concerns and advancing its AI capabilities responsibly. All right, our next piece of AI news. NVIDIA has committed $500 billion to U.S. AI manufacturing amid changing tariff policies here in the U.S. So NVIDIA announced plans to invest up to $500 billion in AI infrastructure manufacturing within the U.S. over the next 4 years, marking a significant shift in its supply chain strategy to meet surging demand for AI chips and supercomputers. So the move coincides with U.S. President Trump's ever-changing tariff policies, which initially imposed steep levies on imports from Taiwan and China, but recently exempted chips and other tech products, easing concerns for companies like NVIDIA and Apple that rely heavily on overseas productions. So NVIDIA will partner with Taiwan Semiconductor in Arizona for chip production, and with Foxconn and Wistron in Texas for supercomputer manufacturing, aiming to achieve mass production at these facilities within 12 to 15 months. So by using digital twins of factories and advanced robotics for automation, NVIDIA hopes and plans to streamline operations and enhance efficiency in its US-based facilities, demonstrating how AI technology can transform the manufacturing process. So yeah, if you're wondering like, okay, what the heck does this matter? Well, so many big companies and all the AI systems that we use, like ChatGPT, Google, Microsoft, everyone else, they're struggling to keep up with demand, right? So essentially, everyone's looking for more compute. This is a pretty big move from NVIDIA to bring more kind of AI power to the US. And then last, but definitely not least, OpenAI has launched a new family of models with the GPT 4.1 series. Probably the big headliners there is it's now has a 1 million token context window, but right now, at least, it is only available for on the API's end, so only for developers right now. So OpenAI has launched its new family of models, GPT 4.1, as a major upgrade to its previous models, offering advancements in context processing, reliability, and cost efficiency. But like I said, you're not going to find it. If you go into chatgpt.com, it's not there. At least right now, OpenAI did not announce any plans for it to live on the front end inside ChatGPT, and is only available for developers on the back end. But let's talk a little bit about the model because some pretty impressive specs here. So GPT 4.1 introduces a 1 million token context window, far surpassing GPT 4.0's previous tops on the API end, which was 128,000. So that's big. Claude and Gemini and others were really beating OpenAI historically in context window, right? But not anymore. So pretty big news there. And then unlike previous models integrated into ChatGPT, like I said, GPT 4.1 is exclusively available through OpenAI's API, making it a tool tailored for developers rather than general use. The performance is pretty impressive across coding, instruction following, and complex reasoning tasks. What's also important is OpenAI has said some of those improvements have also been rolled out kind of under the hood to its GPT 4.0 model. I would assume it was the late March update that there wasn't a lot of updates about. And there are now 3 new varieties. So there is GPT 4.1, kind of the full version, GPT 4.1 MIDI, which is more affordable and compact, and then GPT 4.1 Nano. Yeah, the first time, OpenAI has gone nano, and that is their smallest, fastest, and cheapest model. Yeah. It's as if it's not hard enough to already understand these models. Now we have 2 variety of small ones. Yeah, if you thought mini was small, no. Now apparently mini is medium and nano is small. And then some sad news for some old school. If you like some of these old models, OpenAI is planning to phase out older models like the OG GPT-4 by April 30th. And then also, somewhat surprisingly, OpenAI announced they'd be phasing out GPT 4.5 preview by July 14th to focus on the more efficient 4.1 lineup. Also, this release coincides with a delay in GPT-5's launch, now expected in a few months, as OpenAI navigates some integration challenges. And so FYI, obviously OpenAI has changed course a couple of times. They essentially said, hey, we're going to stop releasing non-reasoning models, and GPT-5 is going to be more of a hierarchy or a system. So they said, yeah, we're not going to be releasing a lot of new models before GPT-5. And here we are. So, all right, let's get into it. A lot more on those stories on our website at youreverydayai.com. What's up, live stream crew? Yeah, if you listen on the podcast, come join us sometime on the live stream. when I have guests, we take questions. Sometimes I ask you all things. So thanks to everyone for joining in. George from YouTube, Big Bogey, saying GPT 4.1 is a coding powerhouse. Yeah, it is already. Early benchmarks. Trade Printing here from YouTube. Thanks for joining us. On the LinkedIn machine, Kimberly and Dennis, Allison, thank you all for tuning in. But let's just get straight into it. Has Anthropic's Claude lost its edge? It's Tuesday, y'all. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee and let me know. Should I crank this up? It's been a while since I really brought it on a Hot Take Tuesday. I'm a little tired, but live stream audience, if you could, leave me an emoji or two. Should I be 1 fire emoji? Should I be kind of nice? 2 fire emojis? Should I bring the heat? Or 3 fire emojis? Burn, baby, burn. I mean, I don't know. One thing, and let me tell you this. I tell you all the truth. I do, period, right? As an example, if you would have asked me 18 to 20 months ago, hey, Jordan, what are your thoughts on Google Gemini? I'd say, don't use it. Ask me today, Google Gemini is the king of the hill, right? I do think it is Google and OpenAI now going jab for jab, but I tell you the truth, right? So I'm not going to hold back. If you all want a little bit of fire, all right. Rolando here is saying to crank it up. Fred, all right, Fred, thank you. Fred's like, all right, Jordan, be nice today. He wants me to be kind of nice. Allison here throwing in some dynamite. That's dangerous. All right. All right, we'll see. We'll see. You know, I don't want to offend anyone, because let me say this. Claude is still one of the most impressive pieces of AI technology ever created. All right, period. So I don't want to overlook that. All right, but what I've found is I've been using Claude less and less. I would say probably 9 months ago, Claude probably accounted for about 25% of my usage. It's probably down to about 5% now. I'm finding it hard to find actual use cases for Claude. And I'm talking about on the front end, y'all. All right. So I'm not talking about on the back end. I know that Claude 3.5 has historically been, one of the most used models. If you look on like Open Router, I know that Claude 3.7 is still popular for developers, although it's not the most popular anymore. It's not the most popular anymore with Gemini 2.0 Flash and Gemini 2.5 Pro. It's really not. But this has been a long time coming. So back in September, if you want to go listen to this, what episode was this here? 351. All right. So I told y'all back in September, 3 reasons businesses shouldn't use Anthropic's Claude yet. And this was after like a year, right? This was a year of me being hesitant. So what a lot of people don't know, people are like, okay, Jordan's just some random guy that, jumps on a podcast and talks about AI. Well, yes, on the surface, right? On the other end, I do a lot of things that you all don't see on the show. Consult big companies with tens of thousands of employees. I work with research organizations. They reach out to me, big ones, big name ones. And they're like, hey, Jordan, can you help us better understand generative AI? So it's much more than this little podcast. Although thank you all for listening, and making Everyday AI a top 10 tech podcast in the US. But I'm talking with a lot of businesses, a lot of things that you don't hear, and it's not just me. Big enterprise companies have always been hesitant to use Claude at scale. All right. And it's been a long time coming. I even said 3 big reasons. This was back in September that I said Claude was in trouble and enterprises shouldn't be using it yet. Number 1, there's no enterprise access. So I'm talking about on the front end, right? So keep that in mind. Everyday AI, it's for largely non-technical people, right? And I'm talking about logging on to, Claude.ai, or I'm talking about logging on to Gemini.google.com, ChatGPT.com, right? Using this on the front end with your team. One thing I'm a huge advocate for, if you listen to the show, is having your AIOS, right? Your AI operating system. Your team needs one, right? In addition to whatever your company may be doing on the back end, you need a front end AI operating system where you and your team collaborate to get work done. No internet access. Claude went the first 2 years without having internet access. They just rolled out internet access about a month ago. Okay? Very limited third-party integrations. All right? Google technically on the front end has not a lot of third-party integrations, but because they're Google, right? Because they have, anything that could be a third-party integration, they essentially have in-house, right? Google has like 1 trillion of their own products, right? Extremely limited third-party integrations. It's improved since September, since I had this show, episode 351. And then I said extremely restrictive testing tiers. So both free and paid. I'd say the one biggest thing that's been knocking Claude off from real business adoption is you can't even go and test it. If you have even a paid plan of Claude, right? And you're like, all right, let's go test this. Let's see if this is right for our business. You're paying the $25 a month or whatever. There's been, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of cases because I use large language models. I mean, it varies. I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 12 hours. Recently, it's been a lot of 12-hour days using large language models, right? It's so easy on a paid plan to hit your rate limits on Claude, I kid you not, within 10 minutes. It's happened to me hundreds of times where I will hit on a paid plan the rate limit within 10 minutes. Yes, I'm generally working in multiple tabs. If I'm in Claude, I'm working with long context windows. Yes. I can't tell you the last time I've hit ChatGPT limits, right? Doesn't happen. Gemini, doesn't happen. Claude has been extremely restrictive. And I think that was a major misstep early on. How do you expect, aside from, appealing to your core audience, which we'll talk about because I think they're losing space there, right? Coding, development, software engineering, etc., right? How are you going to appeal to the average business owner, to the average enterprise use case when, a company pays and maybe they get a team plan? I think those rates are about double, but still, you can't even use the thing when you pay for it. It is extremely restrictive. All right. And another reason why I think that Claude has lost its edge, it's no longer innovating, right? In the early part of 2024, even midway through the year, I still think Claude was an innovator, right? They came out with artifacts, which when it came out, extremely impressive. So if you don't know Claude artifacts, it's actually kind of hidden. You have to enable it and then you have to make a call to it, right? But it's still, and right now, let me be honest, because I still said Claude is still one of the most impressive pieces of AI technology. There's still great use cases, right? Even though I'm trying to, y'all wanted the flame emojis. I'm not going to totally poo-poo on Claude. There's still some use cases. I said maybe now it's 5 to 10% of my use. But the only thing I use Claude for right now is using 3.7 thinking on artifacts. That's it. Nothing else. Because everything else, Claude is not a top model anymore. In many cases, it's not even a top 5 or a top 10 model, which sounds crazy to say because 9 months ago, they were that tier 1, right? If we go back to our ranking tiers, right? Like S, A, B, C, right? They were S. They've fallen. How the mighty have fallen. But that's all I really use it for. But Claude and Anthropic were innovators, early on. So the artifacts, so, that's something that can render code in natural language. You can have it build you a business dashboard, games, whatever, right? And you can run it in the browser. And then guess what? ChatGPT and Gemini said, all right, yeah, let's do this as well. So they came in with Canvas. All right. Similarly, Claude was an innovator with projects. Anthropic innovated with projects, right? A good way to, organize your chats, a good way to leave custom instructions and project knowledge, right? ChatGPT follows suit. Computer use, right? Anthropic was innovating. Although back in October, when that came out, it was extremely clunky, right? One of the easier ways to run computer use was, you had to download Docker, you had to go to GitHub, work with their repo, which is fine, but for non-technical people, not that good. In the rate limits, I did a live show where going over Claude's computer use, again, very hard to use with the rate limits. So I think Claude is no longer innovating. Now, I think they're clone chasing. Whereas before, others were copying their innovation. Now they're copying other people's innovation. So, like now, a lot of the things that you see and that are going to be rolling out, like as an example, according to some online sleuths right now, Claude is testing voice mode and all these things, right? They're just now seemingly cloning features that were popular 6 months ago, a year ago. And one of the reasons, I think, is Anthropic dropped the ball, right? Back in September, when I gave those three reasons, those three different scenarios on why I thought enterprise companies and why I told countless enterprise companies don't use Claude for those 3 reasons. They didn't address those. Those were not secrets. It was no secret that you couldn't, it was so hard to literally use Claude on the front end. They knew that, right? Their team is interacting with people online on Twitter. Everyone's been complaining about work rate limits, and Claude's team has been saying, "Oh, we're working on it for years." It's too late. It's too late. One of the reasons why, right? I don't know this, but we've heard stories that, as an example, OpenAI is losing money, right? Even CEO Sam Altman said on their new Pro $200 a month subscription that they were losing money, even though it's been extremely popular. So I don't know. This is my hunch, but my hunch has been Claude has been maybe more profitable, at least by percentages, than maybe their main and closest competitor to ChatGPT. But at what cost? Because I don't think they're growing their user base. I don't think about it. I think sometimes, if you are an avid listener to the show, if you're, an AI nerd like myself, we all live in an echo chamber as well, right? Outside of our little echo chamber, no one knows about Claude, right? But they could have. They could have a year ago. If Anthropic would have listened to its customer base a little more closely and continued to innovate and improve the product, improve usability, I don't think we'd be having the same conversation today. Always have receipts, y'all. Always have receipts. All right, so on my screen, this is January 2025 web traffic. All right. No one uses Claude. Comparatively, no one uses Claude. They don't. I know I'm going to catch some flack for that, and be like, Jordan, you're a ChatGPT fanboy, or jumping on the Gemini bandwagon. No, I'm not. I've been using Claude since the day it came out. I've enjoyed certain features. I use all. I've used dozens of LLMs, and like I said, hours every single day. Claude's not good anymore. It's not. I got more stats. I got more receipts. Don't worry, y'all. You said you wanted some flame emojis, right? So Let's look at total visits in January 2025, web visits. ChatGPT.com, 3.9 billion with a B. Yeah, with a B. Claude, 76 million. Ugh. Gemini, 267 million. DeepSeek, 277 million. So, essentially, Gemini and DeepSeek are right there with each other in terms of people visiting the front end. Perplexity, 99 million. Y'all, ChatGPT. Let me do some quick napkin math here. ChatGPT has more than 10 times the users of Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, and Perplexity combined. Is my math right there? 500? All right, almost. Sorry. My napkin math was a little wrong there. All right, so we have, that's about 500 million, 600 million. All right, so about 5 times. So ChatGPT has 5 times more users than Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, and Perplexity combined. And Claude is in, at least according to kind of online demographic or online website information, which is pretty accurate, right? I've been using these different SEO tools for 10 plus years. They're very accurate. No one's using Claude. Hot take, ready? It's been less than 2 months since Claude released its latest model in Claude 3.7. Claude Sonnet 3.7. And it already feels antiquated. So they announced it February 24th, Claude 3.7. And let me just call this one out, right? They made a big deal of Claude being, the world's, first hybrid model, right? So, when you think of old school transformers and then you think of these, quote unquote, new school models that think and reason under the hood. I don't know. To me, that seemed like a marketing gimmick from Anthropic, right? Why? Well, you have to actually, if you want to use that extra thinking, right, you have to go in and you have to click the button. So is it actually a hybrid model? I don't know. I'd say not. So now I think you also have Anthropic falling down this trap that Google fell in late 2023, where they're getting caught up in the marketing and not listening to their users and shipping new, capable, powerful models. But Claude 3.7 Sonnet feels antiquated because since that time, we've already had multiple updates from OpenAI. We've had multiple updates from Google. We've even had multiple updates from models that I'd say never use, like DeepSeek, right? If you care about your privacy, don't use it. Unless you're, downloading it and fine-tuning it locally, right? But don't use DeepSeek on the web or their API if you care about your data. If you are a business, don't do it, especially in the US, all right? But anyways, how are we at the point now where a model that is not even 2 months old feels antiquated? That's where we're at. And I don't know if Anthropic can keep up. Like I said, they're very innovative to begin with. They're great researchers. Obviously, I think they are a world leader in terms of AI safety, in terms of ethics, right? All of those things. But in terms of okay, are they just going to be more of a research arm that kind of drops AI models, or are they trying to actually dominate? Are they actually trying to be relevant? Are they actually trying to be one of the top large language model makers in the world? I don't know. I was personally very underwhelmed with Claude 3.7 Sonnet, their newest model. Even the thinking variation when you have to toggle it on. I know a lot of people, I was reading, online, a lot of people are using it inside, like George here on YouTube says, he says Claude seems lazy in Windsurf and Cursor, but it is not when you use it in an app. Yeah. So I know a lot of people, yes, Claude, up until, a week ago when Google said, oh, wait, Claude, you are no longer relevant because we're dropping Gemini 2.5 Pro, which wipes all the way the competitive advantages that Claude 3.5 or Claude 3.7 Sonnet had. right? Google just said, yeah, we're going to knock you off this pedestal. You're not going to compete. Google straight up wiped them, which is interesting, right? Because Google is, has invested, but they're still technically competitors in some regards as well. Let me tell you what I mean. And here's my hot take. I think there's a lot of Twitter talk and hipster hype when it comes to Claude 3.7 or Claude 3.5, but I care about business utility. Anthropic's lost its edge there. I care about benchmarks. I care about real human usage. Claude's not competing there anymore. And like I said, I think one of the biggest things that's happened and that I would not want to be working at Anthropic right now, Gemini 2.5 Pro and 2.5 Flash, I don't know if I'm being honest, unless Anthropic has been sitting on a world-changing model, I don't know how Anthropic is going to compete against Gemini 2.5 Pro and Gemini 2.5 Flash. Good luck. I know, a lot of people have said, oh, well, there's still, Claude 3.7 Opus, right? Anthropic Claude had kind of these 3 tiers of models. They have their small, Haiku, their medium, Sonnet, and their big one, Opus, and they haven't updated Opus in a very long time. So everyone's like, oh, Claude 3.7 Opus or, Claude 4.0 will, I don't know. I don't know, because there's also rumors, even though Gemini 2.5 Pro just went generally available like 10 days ago, there's already rumors that Google has a much better and more capable model that they're already testing on the LM chatbot arena. I don't know how Gemini is going to compete against Google. All right. Got receipts as always, y'all. I have receipts. Yes, similar web, Dennis. Thank you for asking. That's where that data was from. All right. Let me know, y'all, live stream audience. Am I wrong on this? But let's get quickly to the receipts. All right. I'm not going to make you wait an hour for this one. I'm going to go through quickly because the proof is in the pudding, y'all. The writing's on the wall. All right. So let's look at artificial analysis. So a great third-party, unbiased website, right, that does benchmarks. Because one of the things is when companies put out their benchmarks, they cherry pick. There's dozens of different benchmarks. So of course, when these AI labs put out their models, they choose, okay, out of these 50 benchmarks, here's the 8 that we're going to put on our website because we look great on this, right? So I always look at ELO scores. We're going to talk about that in a minute here from LM Arena and look at third-party benchmarks as well. So intelligence, this is from the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index. Gemini 2.5 Pro in the lead. Second, O3 Mini High from OpenAI. Then you have the 2 variations of DeepSeek. And then you have the new version of GPT 4.1. Y'all, I had to count. Claude 3.7 is number 8 in terms of intelligence on this third-party benchmark. Let's keep going because you're like, okay, what about humans? Humans probably prefer it. Okay, so ELO scores. Let's talk about that. That's head-to-head. You put in a prompt on LM Arena, on the chatbot arena. You get 2 outputs. You don't know who they are. You say this one's better. All right, there's been millions of votes. Guess what? Total ELO score. Claude is not a top 10 model. That's when I know it sounds crazy to say, but you have to ask the question, even if you ask it rhetorically. Is Claude no longer a state-of-the-art model? I don't know, y'all. In so many benchmarks, in so many now ELO categories, overall ELO, they're not a top 10 model. Gemma 3, which is a small language model from Google, has a higher ELO score than Claude 3.7. Let me say that again. A small language model, not a large language model. Humans prefer the outputs across millions of votes compared to Claude 3.7. Google has, let's count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 models, 5 different models that humans prefer over Claude 3.7 Sonnet. I don't know. So I don't know. Is my hot take, the very hot take, when I said, hey, Anthropic has lost its place atop, right? Gemini 2.5 Pro, higher. Let's see. We have Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking, higher. Gemini 2.0 Pro Experimental, higher. Gemini 2.0 Flash, higher. And then there's small language model, Gemma 3. My gosh. All right. But you might be saying, all right, Jordan, well, people use Claude for certain reasons, right? They use it for creative writing. Claude's great at that. They use it for coding and software development. Claude's great at that. That's an old narrative. Literally, that's an old narrative, right? Especially the creative writing thing. I think essentially, right, a bunch of stuff went viral online like maybe a year and a half ago about how bad ChatGPT and Gemini were at writing content, and Claude was just so much better. All right, well, let's look at those two things. Let's first look at creative writing. Okay. Where's Anthropic? Oh, the bottom of the list. Again, not top 10 ELO in creative writing. That's what I'm saying. I think right now it's a lot of Twitter talk and hipster hype, right? Oh, it's cool to like Claude, right? It's like, oh, I see you wearing that name brand ChatGPT. Oh, I see you with that mainstream Google Gemini. I'm over here prompting with that Claude, man. No, why? Why? Not a top 10 model when it comes to creative writing, which everyone thought it was amazing at. It was a year and a half ago. Don't lie with me, y'all. This is millions of people have voted this blindly. Guess what else? Not a top 5 in coding either. It's not. Claude 3.7 Sonnet with thinking is not a top 5 model for coding. Guess what is? Guess what's at the top? OpenAI's O1, their O1 preview, their O1 mini, Gemini 2.0 Flash, and I do believe once Gemini 2.5 Pro is on here and gets enough votes, it'll be up there as well. But not a top 5 model in terms of coding. So what do you want? What do you want? I don't understand. Why are people still using Anthropic? Like I said, maybe you have 1 or 2 use cases that you're happy with it, right? If I'm being honest, the only thing I use it, like I said, Claude used to be maybe 20% of my usage. I'm a heavy large language model user. Like I said, maybe it's 5% now. I'm only using it because there's certain things in artifacts that Claude does better than Google's Canvas and OpenAI's Canvas. But it's always like I'm doing it all at the same time anyways. I'm running the same thing in all 3 of them. And sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, Anthropic's is a little bit better here. All right. So maybe you're like, oh, it's fast. It's affordable. It's not fast. It's not affordable. It's not, when you look at speed, and this is from artificial analysis, Gemini 2.0 Flash and Gemini 2.5 Pro are the fastest models, followed by GPT-4o and O3 Mini from OpenAI. Again, Claude not in the top 5 when it comes to speed, all right, which is output tokens per second. So it's not fast. All right, and that is the non-thinking model, by the way. All right. It's terrible on price. It's terrible on price, right? Which I still don't understand why people are so DeepSeek drunk. Like DeepSeek is not cheap anymore, right? It's not. When it first came out, it's like, oh yeah, this is cheaper. Okay. Well, Gemini 2.0 Flash is wiping the floor with everyone when it comes to price. Llama's new Llama 4 Scout, GPT-4o Mini, right? There's just so many faster, better, cheaper models than Claude. So it's definitely lost its edge, right? I think there was one more thing I wanted to pull up here. Okay, it's coming up in a slide here. Because this is also telling. So looking at the intelligence versus price. So it's not like you're getting a good bargain either if you're using Claude on the back end, right? You're not. So on the front end, humans aren't preferring it. On the back end, you're not necessarily getting what you pay for. Again, this is intelligence versus price. So there's a little quadrant here. So you want to be on the upper left because that means it is cheaper and smarter. Claude is on the right side. And Claude 3.7 Sonnet is actually on the bottom right. All right. Not necessarily fast or affordable. And here we go. Everyone's like, oh, it's the best coding model. Guess what? It's not. Artificial analysis, their coding index. This one is very interesting. Claude 3.7, the thinking model. Ready? The thinking model is in 5th place. Guess what's ahead of it? The new model that was just released from OpenAI, GPT-4.1. But guess what, y'all? This is the mini version. The mini version of OpenAI's new model. Not only is it a non-thinking model, right? Because normally if you use these thinking models, these reasoners, they code much better, right? Especially when you're working with very complex tasks in long context windows. So not only is this GPT-4.1 model, it's not a thinking model and it performs better on artificial analysis coding index, but it is the mini version. It is the mini version. So I don't know, y'all, if you're still using Claude 3.7 Sonnet, let me know why. Let me know why. I'm very curious. Like I said, I know a lot of people on the software engineering side, on the development side, they love it, right? Using it with Cursor, using it with Windsurf, using it, inside all these different IDEs. I also don't understand why on that. Now with Gemini 2.5 Pro, with Gemini 2.0 Flash, and now these new models from OpenAI that they just announced, I don't understand it. I honestly don't understand how Anthropic has gone in Claude has gone from that top tier, right? State of the art, world leading model to kind of irrelevant. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, Claude just released a new plan, Jordan. You're really harping on them for, these rate limits. You can just pay more and use it way more. Okay, well, why? If it's not a top 10 model, right? Yeah, Claude just came out with their Claude Max, right? So you get higher limits, if you're paying $100 a month or $200 a month, which let me just call this out, because people are like, okay, Jordan, this solves. Well, you don't get anything more powerful for that $100 or $200 a month. You don't get more features, right? So when OpenAI, as an example, announced their $200 Pro plan, at the time, that was the only way you could access Sora. That's still the only way that you can access O1 Pro. And then you get unlimited everything. Unlimited. This is not limits. This is not unlimited. You can still go on the front end and pay $100 or $200 a month. You don't get new features. You don't get new models that are exclusive to that max plan. You just get slightly better limits. But here's a concerning one, y'all. This one's kind of concerning. Ready? This is from Anthropic's website, talking about their new plan. Ready? Talking about their message limit on the new max plan. Your message limit will reset every 5 hours. We call these 5-hour segments a session, and they start with your first message to Claude. Please note that if you exceed 50 sessions per month, we may limit your access to Claude. Each session includes any messages sent within 5 hours from the first initiated chat. So we expect it to be fairly generous for our users. My gosh, I don't know. How tone deaf is this, y'all? Come on. So let's just say, in theory, let's say you're a very regimented person, all right, like I am. So this is why I can't even use Claude on the current paid plan. But even if I pay $100 or $200 a month, so let's say I use Claude in the morning before my show to help plan it. All right, so let's say 6 a.m. And then I use it at noon, midday. All right. And then in the evening, I use it again. So let's just say I just do a couple of prompts a day. I do it at, 6 a.m. I do it at, noon. And then I do it at 6 p.m. 6, noon, 6, right? Couple prompts a day. Paying $100 or $200 a month. In that scenario, even if I'm only doing a couple prompts, right? paying $100, $200 a month, I might get cut off from my pricey $100, $200 a month plan. That's what they're saying, 50 sessions a month. So if I do that, if I use Claude 3 times a day that are more than 5 hours spaced apart, I could, in theory, in 3 weeks, get shut off. And I might not be able to use their paid plan for the last week of the month. In theory, that's what it's saying here. How tone deaf is that? I don't understand. If I'm being honest, when I saw that, I'm like, come on, Anthropic. You have, I don't know, how many billions of dollars have you gotten from Amazon? I lost track, $6 billion or something. This is why people aren't using your service. Humans don't prefer it. Benchmarks don't prefer it. And for those people that are actually still finding utility in our power users, you're slapping them in the face. Get real. All right, hot take. Let's end it here. Can Claude recover? I honestly don't think so. I don't think so. Here's, again, this is just reading reports. You can't knock Anthropic for putting safety first. You can't. They put out world-leading research. I do think when it comes to, safe AI, they are a leader in that. But no one's paying you for your research. You're not competing to be the best frontier AI lab with the best research, with the best safety. This is a race. This is the Wild West, right? That's what it is. There's no rules when it comes to AI. Anthropic is playing, I'd say, the wrong game. They've alienated their power users. They've stopped innovating. And I think that has caused them to now face an almost insurmountable challenge, right? Let's just say, as an example, Claude had their 4.0 model ready, and they probably have had it ready for a while. When you see these new drops from OpenAI, right, their 4.1 models, the smaller versions, when it comes to price per performance, amazing. Same thing with Google Gemini 2.5. I don't think, if I'm being honest, right, where 9 to 15 months ago, I'm like, yep, it's going to be a 3-team race. It's not anymore. Yes, you have to pay attention to open source. You have to pay attention to Chinese models, but most enterprise companies here in the US aren't going to touch many open source models for different reasons. And they're not going to touch Chinese models for obvious reasons, data security, data privacy, and not sending all of your business IP straight to China. From a US perspective, Anthropic was primed to compete in this 3-team race. They were primed to be a leader. But now they're a second-tier company. They are. That might be harsh. You wanted my honest take. That's not just me. Is that my personal usage? Sure. Is that my personal experience? Yes. But I showed you the receipts. Users aren't using it. Number 1. They're not competing on benchmarks. Number 2. Humans don't prefer it. Number 3. So can Claude recover? I don't know. I'd probably say no. All right, y'all. I hope this was helpful. You wanted some hot takes? I try to bring it a little bit. Talking a little bit, has Anthropic's Claude lost its edge? What happened? And are Google and OpenAI too far ahead? Simple answer, yes, Anthropic's lost its edge. And yes, OpenAI and Google, at least today, are way too far ahead for Anthropic to catch. I could be wrong, but the only way you're going to find out is by continuing to tune in. Maybe I'll be eating a big helping of humble pie in 2026, but we will see and find out. All right, thank you for tuning in, y'all. If you haven't already, please go to youreverydayai.com. If this was helpful, please share this with your network, tag a friend, someone that needs to hear this. If you're listening on the podcast, appreciate your support as always. Reach out to me. I always leave my email in my LinkedIn there in these show notes. So please reach out if you have thoughts on this. Let me know in the live stream comments as well. Then go to youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.